Welcome to the Tooele Happy Hour podcast, starring Jared Anderson and David Weiss.
Starring.
Today's guest. Hope, will you introduce yourself?
Chelcie Hope. I'm Chelcie Hope. Hi, guys.
So tell us about yourself, Chelcie.
I live in Utah County. I've been studying corruption really specifically in Utah for the last year or so. And I'm just trying to kind of get the word out to people with what I've been uncovering and what I'm seeing going on. So,
okay. All right. So you and I have been chatting.
Yeah.
And we've talked about a couple of different things that you have uncovered through the excitement of digging in legislation.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say, wow.
So exciting.
I mean, we can't even get them to read the bills.
Exactly. I'm doing it for them. Yeah.
I bet you that is 90% of the problem is they don't know what's in the bills. And they're like, how do I answer this person who read the bill?
And they're probably briefed by people on their staff who
they hire staff, which we did not vote for.
I'm sure the staff are completely above board.
Yeah, they don't. There's so many bills they don't have time to read them, yet they're voting on them.
Yeah.
And I wish that they would come out and start saying, look, I didn't have time to vote on it, so I'm voting no. Let's bring it back next session.
Yeah.
I mean, we need a limit on the bills.
Yeah. I'll just say right now, I think we need to pass an amendment. No bills more than 25 pages can only include one thing. And in those 25 pages must be the allotment for funds.
Yeah. Well, and everything needs to be included in the bill, because a lot of what I've been finding is they'll pass, a water bill, but then they'll slip part of it they don't want you to see. They'll slip part of it you don't want to see into like an education bill or something. So they're passing little parts of it into through other topics, other completely unrelated bills. And so you don't have the full scope. You don't really know what's going on until you've found all of it.
So then after they pass them all, they can connect them and make Voltron. Voltron the legislator.
Voltron. Yeah.
Except the Voltron's made of ashy old dog turds in the grass. But yeah. So, all right, let's go back to before you started this as a hobby and, essentially now a career. What was your life like then? What was your daily life like? You'd wake up, probably breathe clean air, have a cup of coffee. Who were you before you started down this?
It was a lot more fun than this, I'll tell you that. I was a dental assistant for 6 years, kind of got sick of that and went into kind of finance. And a lot of people don't realize you can use whole life insurance policies. You can use the death benefit while you're alive as kind of a banking system. And so I worked with agents and helped our clients with that for a while. And I have narcolepsy. I kind of talked to you about that, but it kind of started creating issues with me being able to devote full-time hours to work. And so it kind of got to a point, I'm blessed in my life right now where I'm at a place where I could kind of pull out of that and start doing this full-time once I started realizing how serious of a problem the corruption is here. So, but that's kind of what I was doing.
Okay. So what got you turned on to the first time you said, wait a second, this doesn't look right. I am going to, first of all, find out where I find the bill, because not everyone knows that. I, unfortunately, do know how to find them. That doesn't going to read them anyway. And then, so you figured out where to find the bill and then started wading through, the cesspool that is our legislation. What was that like? What drove you to it?
So, I was already, I think we all, with, the election integrity, there have been things, the vaccines, election integrity, everybody, I think, is kind of feels like at least something is off in Utah. We do have some level of corruption here, right? Not everything is.
And only in Utah.
Only here. Only here. Not everything is fine. And it wasn't really until I saw Mike Brown's video go viral. And for those of you that didn't see that.
Yeah, Mike Brown, a past guest who I'm going to try to replay this as best I can. Mike was, he went to a meeting about No, on 64, some crap like that. But it was about voting on.
Was it letting your kids play in sports if they're trannies?
Yeah,
or
something like that. Yeah, and he went to a meeting on that, and
I thought it was for HB60.
Something.
It was the vaccine passport.
Yeah, vaccine. It was something, but he wore.
Maybe there was multiple issues.
He wore a shirt that
We Are the People.
A We the People shirt. But what really got him is a little old lady was handing out stickers, no 60 or whatever, and he took a sticker and put it on his pant leg or shorts or something, and Senator McKay didn't like that and took umbrage with it, and delayed proceedings and whatever until he was arrested and escorted out. And we still haven't done a follow-up with Mike to see, was he finally charged?
The charges were dropped. He got them dropped.
So the charges were dropped.
Finally.
Because, yeah. Now,
did Senator McKay ever seek therapy for being triggered by a sticker?
I think Senator McKay needed a dry cleaner to unwind those panties. But anyways, no, but what got him was first the sticker, and then when he said okay and removed the sticker, then it was the shirt, a shirt that is specifically Americana.
It's right on the video. The officers state it's because they're like, "Why are you arresting him?"
The officers.
He has a We the People.
And that is a specifically Americana shirt. I could see if he said, citizens of the Politburo unite or whatever. I could see him going, all right, that's stupid. Get out of here. But a We the People, that's kind of our thing.
I'm going to argue that though.
What?
Because even then we have freedom of speech.
Oh, I agree. But I mean, I could give him umbrage with, long live the Ayatollah shirt. I could have umbrage with that, but a We the People
for you.
Yeah, would you? But anyway, so that got you down the rabbit hole. What was your first jaunt?
What do you mean?
What was your first, I'm going to look up the bill and hold on, this is shady. Did you ever find any bills that were makes sense. It's pretty, plain.
What he's asking is what triggered you to actually go dig inside of legislation?
Yeah. So at this point, when I saw this whole thing with Mike, I'm like, okay, obviously things are worse than I thought here. Not in my state. I'm getting involved. I'm going to speak up. I'm going to start showing up to legislation, paying attention to what's happening, listening to what they're saying. And I did. And that's when the first time that, and I don't want to get too much into it because that's a whole nother topic, but we kind of talked about what we talked about with Betsy, but I was paying attention to these mental health clinics that they're trying to bring into the schools. And we know that the stuff with the education with the kids is just gone rampant.
It's all above board.
Insane right now. And I started realizing that these legislators there is a level of corruption with our legislators as well. And so I started going home and researching the groups that were presenting to legislation and getting allocations. And then the bills that they were referencing or wanting to run, I started reading these bills. And after the whole thing with Mike Brown and legislation, I'm starting to realize some of these bills aren't on our side. And so I went home and I'm like, I'm just going to start reading as many bills as I can and see what I find. And I started sending them to a group of people that I've been kind of working alongside now. And now there's kind of a team of us that have been trying to go through them. But I mean, it's insanity. They have gone rogue. They are out of control right now, our legislators, with some of these bills that they're passing. So
I believe I know corporations and companies write this stuff, lobby our government, and try to pass it off as our legislators wrote it. But like that Obama insurance policy from a few years back, they had that stored in some vault, just waiting for the right opportunity. Don't tell me Obama was smart enough to write that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
how it goes.
I'm telling you, if the government made a law that said will increase terrorism or will increase wars, war would be a thing of the past. The government they name things the opposite of what it does. The Affordable Care Act, and I heard a funny one. So I'm out hunting with the old man, and the old man's chatting with another hunter. We're stopped around, and Dad says, "I wish our Department of Wildlife would try to take care of mosquitoes because they're a real problem." And I fell out. That was too good because they've tried to take care of the deer, and there ain't deer unless you're here in Tooele City driving down the road. But there ain't deer out on the mountainsides. But anyway, sorry. Side note. Probably boring. Only I found it funny.
Oh, we love mosquitoes and deer.
But if they tried taking care of mosquitoes, mosquitoes would be a thing of the past. It'd be like the mosquitoes never got on the ark.
On the ark.
But anyways, so go on. So your first jaunt was into schools.
Yeah, the schools and
What was the first bill that drew you in on that? What was the encapsulation in the first bill?
It's kind of what we talked about last time. Do you want me to get into that?
Well, this is on a different show, but let's just do a quick coverage you're talking about the Sharp survey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then also the state is retaining the right to kind of, if the Sharp survey meets certain criteria by the state, to take possession of your child. And then with the possibility of them doing electroconvulsive therapy on your child.
Yeah.
Without parental consent.
Yeah. These Sharp surveys, they're suicide prevention surveys, and they're a screening tool for your kids. But I mean, they are hundreds of questions long, and it's asking your kids questions like introducing them to the term transgender, and these start in 6th grade. But asking your kids if they identify as transgender, kind of the relationship with the parents.
6th grade?
6th grade.
Is there a right or wrong answer to that?
I wish they would have asked me that damn question in 6th grade, because I would have babbled on for hours trying to play smart.
Like on Ghostbusters, where they're like, is this a square or a triangle? And then you get zapped if you say the wrong.
Well, it's a screening tool because they have a score at the end. And it's what the score is it's, are you a risk to yourself? Are you a risk to others? Or are you a risk to someone else's property? And really, it's not like you're going to burn a house down. It's like graffiti and knocking mailboxes over and that kind of thing. But they're asking you like where the guns and ammo were stored in your home. How often are you very sad? Have you ever burned yourself? Have you ever cut yourself? Have you ever tried to kill yourself? If so, have you thought about how you would do it? And I'm like sitting here thinking, I don't think parents understand that these are the questions that their kids are being asked in school. It is a screening tool also for the electroconvulsive, because Utah State Code says that if your child is a threat to themselves, someone else, or someone else's property, basically they can be subjected to electroconvulsive, which is electroshock to the brain, to induce a grand mal seizure. And they're saying it's to treat depression. And I've showed you the websites. It's up on Intermountain Healthcare, Molina. I mean, there are.
Yeah, we weren't like looking at InfoWars to find this.
Right.
We were looking at Intermountain Healthcare, the largest healthcare service here.
Yeah.
It's not a new therapy. Electroshock therapy has been around for a long time.
Electroconvulsive has replaced electroshock.
Yeah.
But it's never been really been used on children before.
Yeah.
I mean,
talked to a physician.
it's kind of looked at like lobotomies.
And that is part of the code. It's electroconvulsive with the intention to induce grand mal seizures, and psychosurgery, which is lobotomies and brain surgery to treat depression on a child, anyone under the age of 18. And the disturbing part that I found about the code was that originally it was electroshock in adults, then they changed it to electroshock in children specifically, and then they changed it to electroshock to electroconvulsive with the intent to induce grand mal seizures. And when I talked to, he is actually a legislator who's also a physician, he said, I have seen very rare cases where it is the last resort where electroshock has benefited like some people, but I have never seen it done in a child, let alone electroconvulsive in a child on a developing brain. He didn't know this was law. He was very concerned about it. And the thing that's disturbing about it is if they prescribe your child this treatment, it's not up to you if you don't consent. it is up to the Department of Health and Human Services will appoint 2 fact finders, and they will make the final determination on if your child will be forced to undergo this treatment. Anyone under the age of 18, and within 48 hours of their decision, you'll be forced to give custody of your child over to the department to start treatment.
Has that physician looked into, has he found anyone to let him know if this electroconvulsive therapy helps depression?
He did say that that electroshock, he has seen it benefit some patients.
Yeah, and I've heard it, but does it help depression?
Severe depression, he said.
Okay. And then
where it's like they just cannot get up out of bed anymore. They haven't moved in days, like weeks.
So we're talking a 12-year-old girl just entering that fun time of their life when they're all coherent and all sane.
Right.
And they're giving them this question in 6th grade when they're 12, right? 6th grade is 12 or maybe even 11.
Mm-hmm.
And then judging if they're depressed. Now it'd be one thing if they're like, I'm better off if the state comes in, if the child's in a dangerous situation by the parents.
Yeah. But we've seen that abused as well.
Well, granted,
Yeah.
very true. And then we've also seen it neglected when it needs to be in use.
Yeah. And I spoke to Burgess Owens face to face, and he admitted that yes, because we all know that there have been issues with Child Protective Services. I mean, there have been.
Giving the babies back to the crackhead moms, but taking the baby away from the mom who wants to make them eat salad with every other meal.
Yeah. And I have a friend here whose daughter was taken from her through the courts here and given to a guy he's a pimp basically. And her pediatrician gave, she has a report from the pediatrician basically saying that she's showing signs of sexual abuse under his care and she can't get her back. They just came and took her.
Good job, Utah. Good job.
Good job, Utah.
Can't win them all, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
or any of them.
yeah.
Let's why even show up to the game?
Here's the issue with that really quickly. I know we need to get in water, but just so parents are aware, they are pushing under this behavioral mental health. They're pushing the transgender stuff, everything, critical race theory, and now depression all into like your behavioral health. And they want these mental health clinics in these schools. Now we know through California that now if you're 12 years old, you can get, without parents' consent, you can get hormone blockers and gender reaffirming surgery when you're 12, because, you're always making the best decisions for yourself when you're 12. But in these mental health clinics, they can get prescriptions for this stuff. And they are, I'm terrified because there's a lot of stuff going on with these mental health clinics in the schools. And I really, if you want to get involved, if you're a parent, we need legislation to break up education and mental health. You should be, as the parent, you should have the ability to take your child to a psychiatrist or a doctor that you trust after school hours as you see fit. The problem with this code and the problem with a lot of things they're trying to push right now is they want the education system and the state and the community as a whole to decide what's best for your child. That's the direction they're going right now. That's a fact. And
I think the worst thing we ever did was turn our educating of our children over to the state.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think that signed the end. It just took 2 generations.
But we need mental health out of schools. It's not their job to get into your kid's heads. Let you as a parent do that. What they're doing now is they can use any of this information to say you're not the best. I mean, they are saying in California now, this is happening now. It is a fact that if you don't call your child by their pronouns, if you don't get them hormone blockers or introduce them to a doctor that will talk to them about gender reaffirming surgery, you're abusive and neglectful now. And now they can come take your child from you. This is where this is heading. Like it's happening. So we got to get this mental health, put everything back in the power of the parents. And they don't know what's best for our kids. They don't.
Well, I don't think they actually
care.
Have an intent of being what's best for your kids.
No. They get paid to give this treatment.
They get paid.
They get money for implementing
and
these
you
things.
become a permanent patient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we need parental rights back here, so
I agree.
we're fighting for it.
I agree. I mean,
we'd love to see you at the Capitol if you can come this January.
I'm not saying we need gallows built in multiple places around the nation, but we do need to wrestle control back. But anyways, So
Water.
you dug into all these white papers, got onto that.
Yeah.
What got you onto water? What was the kickoff?
Okay, so I've felt like I just kind of felt like there was something off with the water because there were a lot of contradictions that were being made, and I kind of wanted to start digging, and I have been studying the World Economic Forum white papers. I've read their white papers, and Utah has, well, every state does, but they're strategic plans. And what it is it's a plan for, and this is another thing as I've noticed, we've really lost checks and balances because these boards and committees that we have, they consist of legislators and senators, governor, cabinet members, and then attorneys and lawyers and judges. And so it's all three branches of government. They're supposed to be kept separate for checks and balances, but they've all come together. They all sit on boards of corporations that are in bed with bigger corporations that are partnered with World Economic Forum and United Nations. And so they are getting paid to bring a lot of this into our state, but that's kind of a lot of stuff I was uncovering in the beginning as well. And I started noticing these strategic plans, where we've got all three branches of government kind of working together to come up with a plan. And the strategic plans are basically either a 1-year or a 5-year plan of what they want to implement to the state and how. Mm-hmm. And they present it to legislation for the appropriation and the funding for it. And then you've got the legislators on the board that write the bills. They draft the bills that they look at, okay, what barriers are here? What is illegal making it so we can't do this? We need to make a bill making it legal. They draft these bills, they get them passed through, and then they also sit on the boards to help implement this. And they sit on the boards of these corporations that are coming down, through our infrastructure, every aspect of our economy right now that are implementing all these things. So I'm reading this about the water with the World Economic Forum, and maybe I'll kind of put that on hold for a minute and get to that at the end, kind of how this all ties in. But I'm looking through the water, and I noticed that I came across the map where it's a blueprint of our water piping, and I'm noticing that we've got piping from Provo River, from Diamond Fork Canyon, American Fork Canyon. There's underground piping into, and this is right on our government website. It's not a secret or anything, but we know that water flows like through down Provo River and then through Utah Lake, up Jordan River into the Great Salt Lake, but there's underground piping directly into the Great Salt Lake as well. And I'm noticing that, they're talking about how we need to fill up the Great Salt Lake and that our reservoir levels are dropping. And I'm looking at the division. If you go to the Utah Division of Water Rights and you look at the dams, we have so many high hazard dam ratings. And for those of you that don't know what that means, it just means that the spill crest is so high, the reservoirs are so full that if the dam were to break, it would be so much water would come out at once that there would be a huge loss of life or property. And so we have all these high hazard dam readings because all these spill crests are full to the top. You have legislation that I'm sitting in talking about all these reservoirs up in the mountains here that are completely full that they want to dam off and make new water resources. And I'm sitting there thinking, how are all these other reservoirs full? And I'm listening to a presentation that was given to legislation where Bob Sager was somebody who, I think it was the Department of something with the land. I don't remember exactly which group came in, but they had hired him independently to do his own studies. And he went up to Monroe Mountain, and I think it was like 17 acres of land that he surveyed. And he came back and basically said, look, everything they're saying about the overgrazing, not true. He found all these really full levels of water where all the water quality was great. The riparian vegetation was great. And he says, I don't know who's giving you this information, but they are intentionally skewing the data. So all the data everything they're telling us about these reservoirs and water quality, he said they're intentionally skewing the data.
Do you trust him?
Yes.
Why?
Well, let me get into the next part, and I think that'll make sense. So I am trying to figure out what's the deal, because we have this narrative right now with, and here's part of this, right, is I've gone out to these reservoirs and lakes myself, a lot of them. And I've seen some of this for myself, and then I see narrative and headlines and stuff that, oh, these levels are so low, and it's like, no, they're not. I was just up there. Or, like with Deer Creek, when they're draining reservoirs, here's the thing with the reservoirs that people need to keep in mind with these dams is they drain one dam to fill another reservoir. And all they do is they focus on this one reservoir of how the water is so low, but yet the water's been replaced. So another level's just come up, right? But they don't show the whole picture. It's just, they're just focusing on the reservoir levels that are going lower. And a lot of these, when you look at it, it's like, well, they just open the dam and they were releasing water into other areas. Like, I started seeing this is a lot of why this is happening. And I'm like, I'm realizing there are other reasons for this narrative. So Dane Wigington, who is now the Great Salt Lake, right? We're hearing this narrative that there's this arsenic out there, and there's this arsenic dust on the flats, and if the water were to completely evaporate and dry up, then the wind would pick up this arsenic and we'd be breathing in this toxic dust. So they're looking for every reason. They want to drain a big portion of Bear River now into the Great Salt Lake. All of our fresh water sources, they're wanting to drain into the Great Salt Lake. But it's a dead sea. It's not drinkable water after that. But this is the narrative that they're given. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, but Lake Bonneville has been drying up forever. The Great Salt Lake's been drying up for some time now. The salt flats are 12 miles long and 5 miles wide. If the arsenic is supposedly natural, like they're saying, from sediment runoff, and wouldn't we have been, as the lake's been drying up all along, wouldn't we have been breathing in this toxic dust this entire time? Why all of a sudden is it just this little portion? And I'm trying to figure out, what is the deal with the Great Salt Lake? And I had come across Dane Wigington. He is, you can go to geoengineeringwatch.org. He has been studying, the cloud seeding and the chemtrails and the weather modification and everything that some think it's conspiratorial, I guess, but he has all the patents. So I got my patents from him, but he has been studying our U.S. military and our U.S. government, and they do have what's called the Weather Modification Association. You can Google it and look up their website. And the Utah Department of Water Resources sits on that board, and they're the ones that oversee the West Desert pumps, the Great Salt Lake, which I'll get into in just a second here. But Dane Wigington has been studying this. He's a solar energy expert, and he's worked with experts, with geoengineers for decades, and he's been going around and presenting legislation for decades, and he's uploaded on his site the patents. He has over 150 patents. He has presidential documents, Senate documents, U.S. military documents showing all the weather modification and the chemtrails that they're spraying. And he talks about this drought, and he has proof. He went and checked it out. He did a whole documentary where he went out and got video of it, and he showed the patents for it. But you've probably been hearing people talk about have you heard about how people have kind of been talking about how they're seeing weird things going on over at the dams down by like Lake Mead and Colorado River?
All about how they're drying up and...
No, people have been coming out and saying that they've been seeing in the middle of the night, people are going out and supposedly there's claims that people are coming out and seeing that they're draining water out there, and there's like fishy things going on out there. And, with this whole Lake Powell is 186 miles long and 25 miles wide. It is a huge lake. And in 1 year, they want to say that the water dropped 45 feet. A lot of this, it's near impossible, right? And Lake Powell drains into Lake Mead. Well, he found the patents and went out and got did a documentary, has video of it all on his website, he found a third intake tunnel that they built underneath Lake Mead, and it was designed to drain every last drop from Lake Mead. And so Vegas started taking water without telling the other states, taking additional water, their water rights, and basically just draining it out into Vegas's party. So we've got, and then there's a video that I've also posted, which I can direct everyone to these videos and links and websites.
And in the show notes, we'll have her blog and all of the.
I'll provide all the sources. So, some guy drove up to the Continental Divide, which is where the source of Colorado River starts, and he went up there. And there's a video posted that he did on my page as well. But he took video of how they're diverting water to the east before it even has a chance to get to where it's supposed to go, to the western cities that have paid rights for it. They're diverting it. So they're saying that, oh, the Colorado River is drying up down where it's supposed to come through into our area.
Why is when they're diverting it to the east, they'd be diverting it into Colorado, right?
I'm not sure exactly where the eastern part of it goes.
Or are they trying, or is it further east? And then why are they doing that? Do they just feel like
they haven't told anyone they're doing it?
Or see, here's a devil's advocate.
Uh-huh.
So let's say both parties, the East and the West, have paid for water rights, like this imaginary dog shit thing the government has anyway. But they paid for it. And could they be diverting it to match the water rights pay? Or...
Well, why would they need it all going to the east? Why wouldn't they drain some of it to the west? Because there's parts that go east and there's parts that go west.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Why?
Like on Tuesdays it goes east and Wednesdays it goes west.
Well, the dams where they're responsible to do that, it's down at the dams. Like that's where they regulate all of that, right? So why are they doing it way further up, right at the source of it, where it starts, where nobody is paying attention or
Maybe
watching?
to get it further east.
Well, maybe, but
I'm just wondering why. Have you looked into why they're doing it, or is there any information out there on why they're doing it?
No, there's not. There isn't. And, there's also a video of this guy that goes kind of through, shows the reallocation of the river over the years and just how irresponsible it is, the government. So here's another thing with the allocation, right? So we've got, a lot of people know about the Colorado River Compact, right? Our water basins here with the Colorado River Compact. A lot of people don't know about the Utah Central Project, which is where they brought the Green River in as well. And originally we were getting 1 million acre feet of water to our basins per year. And to put that in perspective, it's 326,000 gallons of water is 1 acre foot. And over the last, I think, decade and a half, they have dropped that level down to 101,000 acre feet. And now that's fine, but
repeat those numbers again one more time for the slow people out there, not like me.
So 1 acre foot is 326,000 gallons of water.
Okay.
Originally, we had 1 million acre feet per year, and now it's down to 101,000 acre feet.
So we've lost about 80% of
a lot of our water.
Feet.
And then in minute 319 we made a contract with Mexico. We have minute 319 and then minute 323. And what they're doing is they're damming a lot of our allocated water up further, and then they are sending a good amount down to Mexico, down through their riverbeds. There was a news article or a video where the news was there, and they were all in the riverbed because it was dried up, and they were swimming in the water when it came down, and it's going down to let out into the ocean. So we are reallocating some of our water elsewhere. They've lessened the amount of water that's being allocated to us. There's reports and suspicions of reservoirs being drained, yet we have this drought narrative. And the thing that kind of I think is funny is we have all of these states of emergency from Cox and in Nevada and other places that we're at risk for flooding, but yet we're also in a state of emergency for a drought. And so a lot of this stuff is kind of not adding up to me. And I'm like, what is the deal with the Great Salt Lake with them wanting to drain our levels over? And we were up at Deer Creek, and they had told us that we couldn't get the boats on the reservoir. And we asked why. They said, well, we've really opened the dam, we're draining the reservoir. We asked why. They told us that they are draining water into the Great Salt Lake. And I immediately called up legislation because I'm like, now, we gave them $60 million of our tax dollars for new water infrastructure at Deer Creek Reservoir. And when we did that, they told us they would not need to drain the reservoir to do that. Now, all of a sudden, the reservoir is being drained, and I'm trying to figure out why that's happening, who gave them permission to do that. And I get a response back from one legislator telling me, oh, no, they're not doing it at the Great Salt Lake. I talked to the Department of Water Resources, which is over the pumps in the Great Salt Lake, and the manager over at Deer Creek, and he told me that it's because it's so hot right now that people are asking for extra water, which seemed a little weird to me. because there is a certain amount of water rights that we have and that we pay for. And all of a sudden it's so hot, everybody's asking for more water. But okay. Then I get another response from another legislator saying that, well, no, this is just the protocol for winter. This is just routine. So now I'm starting to get a bunch of different answers of why they're draining Deer Creek Reservoir. And then I see an article come out a few days later that Deer Creek Reservoir is down to 45% capacity. Well, I just took video of y'all. I mean, the water coming out of the dam, which is on my Rumble channel, it was coming out at a massive rate and they were draining it. They said they'd be draining it for 2 weeks. And then they're presenting to legislation. When I'm at legislation watching, they're presenting that they have this map of all these reservoir levels that are lower. And that is one of the one that's on there. Oh, it's only at 45% capacity. It's like, well, y'all have just admitted that you opened the dam and that you were draining it. So why are you trying to use that as a narrative to us that it's because of a drought? And so just there's lots of contradictions happening. And I did a grandma request for the West Desert pump maintenance records, which we'll talk about in a second here, and then the Deer Creek Dam. I said for the last year, I want to know exactly where this water is going, when, why, how much, how. Are you diverting it to Provo River? Are there other tunnels we don't know about? Like, how? And we had the Attorney General with that department contact us asking what it was exactly that we wanted. And then he directed us to the Bureau of Reclamation, stating that the federal government has records on Deer Creek, not the state. It's a state park. Why is all of a sudden so I'm getting the runaround with trying to get records now.
Well, let me ask a question. So, and this, I don't know the particulars. I do know the federal government tends to run wildlands because Nixon sold us out and had to have something to get loans against. But anyways, would it happen to be that maybe federal runs large waterways? I guess I don't know the particulars. Could federal run the waterway because it falls under the Commerce Clause or anything like that, or could any of that happen?
It's not federal land. It's not. And even if
could the water fall under that? Because some of our water does pass from state to state,
right? But when you are releasing the dam and the operations and maintenance that you're doing at Deer Creek in our state should have records for that. Maybe the federal government has partial records on that, or maybe both.
Governments are supposed to keep records,
right?
On what they do.
Well, who are the employees at that operation? Are they state level or federal level?
They're state level. Yeah. So it's even if the federal government wanted to keep the records because they are involved in waterways coming here, okay, that's one thing. But our dams and our maintenance here that they're doing here and where it's being directed to our municipal water supply and our irrigation, our state needs to have records on that.
I completely agree.
There is at least some sort of record our state should have. Supposedly they don't have it. And I can't get a straight answer to what is going on with Deer Creek and into the Great Salt Lake. And so I'm trying to figure out what's the deal with the Great Salt Lake.
Maybe our state really doesn't keep track of the water and they don't know what's going on. They just like, all right, is anyone yelling at me?
Well, if not, they need to go.
Homer Simpson leans back against the on switch.
It is not something that would pass my mind as truth if there was just so much disorganization that they are not keeping track, or
especially something.
Maybe there's no one at the head of the snake.
If they don't know what's going on, you expect us to believe the narrative they're giving us in articles they're writing and what they're telling us about this drought? If
they got to tell you something.
That's a good point.
And it runs with global warming. And there's probably lizard people at the top funding global warming.
We're going to get into that.
That is cue for Dave has reached the fun point of the alcohol tonight.
So I came across these in 87 when we had, for those of you that don't know, we had severe flooding and like our highways, our infrastructure was totally gone.
I remember being pulled out of school to fill sandbags.
Really? Oh, did you?
Yeah. I was in
I was in California.
4th grade or something like that.
I was born a year before that. I was born in 86.
So they'll pull you out of school for emergencies.
Yeah, we were filling sandbags for Cooley Street because that was where the overflow would run down. I don't think West Street was either not connected or didn't have an issue, but Cooley Street had a lot of flooding issues. A couple of my friends' houses over there flooded, and I don't know. We were in fourth grade. We might have got enough together that the whole class got a sandbag completed, maybe. But yeah, I just remember that. It was a good time.
Yeah, sounds like fun.
Yeah.
So they decide, in order to deal with this massive amount of flooding, they're going to build what they call the West Desert pumps that are still out there. And what they did was they built these 3 huge pumps, these canals, and they pump 1.5 million gallons of water per minute.
Yeah, the Bangerter project, a big project.
Yeah.
I remember it was a big to-do at the time.
1.5
million
million
gallons
of water per minute.
Mm-hmm.
How much water is in the Salt Lake, you think?
I don't remember what the level is they say right now. I don't remember
Just
what the level
water?
is.
Probably 3 gallons. The salt that's mixed into it?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking
A lot
soupy
of
chocolate milk, and it might be at its deepest 8 foot deep.
So they pump all this water out, and basically what they do is they pump it out of the Great Salt Lake, out of these, into this canal, way like out into the West Desert. I think it's like 8 miles or something out. And yeah, you can see it here on the map, just to dry up and evaporate, right? And then they turned the pumps off in 89, and they said, we're not going to turn them on again but we're going to keep them here in case we ever have flooding again, we need to use them. Now, I had looked into how they maintain the West Desert pumps, and what they do is they say that the pumps have not been turned on since 89. And so in order to keep water vapor from pressurizing and kind of like exploding the pumps, they replace a nitrogen cylinder once a month, right? This was originally the reason that they gave. And after kind of my blog came out and we got, Brad Wilson read it and we had legislators reading it, and it seemed like some damage control was going on with some articles that were coming out. That's just my opinion. But all of a sudden, an article comes out stating that, they do have to, because now people are aware that there's I went out I drove out to the West Desert pumps. I'm like, what is the deal with the Great Salt Lake? What is going on with these pumps? With everything I've been finding, I didn't know for sure if I would, but I expected to find water on the west side of the pumps. And if they have not been turning on the pumps, I go out there and there's water all the way down the canals. And I got video of everywhere that I'm like driving on the way. There's like these big canals on the road and the water's like glass, right? Completely still. And then you've got water when I get up there, water on the north side of the tracks, glass, completely still. And just like a few feet to the south side of the railroad tracks, you can see water in there on the map. South side of the railroad tracks, there's a current and it is flowing all the way down the canals and out into the West Desert, to the end of the canals. And I'm sitting there thinking, how's all this water getting out here? Well, they come out with this new article and they basically admit they've been turning the pumps on. They said that in order to maintain them, now before it was they haven't been turned on since 89, and they use the nitrogen cylinders.
Chelcie, before you go any further.
Yeah.
When you did your research into the maintenance of these pumps,
which they won't give me the records.
They won't give you the records, but was there an instruction manual? Was there an SOP? What was your source?
They had interviewed, it was an article where they had interviewed the people that go out and maintain it, the people that are in charge of going out and maintaining it monthly.
Have you ever talked to him?
I have not talked to him, no. And when I do reach out to people, they don't respond.
Right.
So I'm going off the info I have, right? I don't get responses, or I'm getting all sorts of different contradicting responses, or they don't have the records, they don't exist, or now the federal government has them supposedly. I can't get anything. If everything were on the up and up, you'd think it wasn't so hard just to get this information.
No, there
quick
should be
phone
some
call
sort of
back.
an instruction manual, an SOP, or something that the public can actually receive.
Even the SOP with the elections, when we were trying to get those, they wouldn't give them to us. They won't. They don't ever give them to us.
I mean, theoretically, this thing, if it can pump 1.5 million gallons of water a minute, it could be a weapon.
That's a lot of water.
I mean, that is a water weapon.
Yeah.
If you think about it,
Right.
it could theoretically, they could turn it on and use it against us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so yeah. And, now all of a sudden they come out and where originally it's, the nitrogen pumps, now all of a sudden they're admitting, well, in order to maintain them, we have to, because water pressurizes. I thought that's what the nitrogen pumps were for. They have to turn on the pumps once a month. Now, 1.5 million gallons of water per minute. You turn those things on for 30 seconds once a month. Do you have any idea how much water that is?
But of course, maybe they could also tone it down. I mean, they don't have to go at max speed. There's probably more than one.
True. That is true.
750 million gallons. 1.5 million, not 750,000 gallons. I apologize. But even if they have to turn each one on for half a minute,
right,
that's how much water gets pumped out.
So, and I try to play devil's advocate with this, and I just want the truth, right? I just want the truth of what is going on with our water, because something seems really weird. And they're coming out with these, water conservation efforts. And I come across now, there are, we've got, well, let me get into the climate. So, because a lot of the stuff that we're hearing, it's because of global warming, right? And we've got all these algae blooms and all this stuff that's going on. Well, the chemtrails, and it is a fact. The patents are there. The documentation is there. I think most people have figured out they've been spraying the chemtrails by now, but they are spraying those. And the iron and sulfur that they spray drops down and settles on the floor beds of these reservoirs, and they create algae blooms, which kill the fish. They have the New Zealand article or Journal of Ecology, the 1997 edition. They did studies on ecosystems, and I think it's volume 27 of that journal. But they actually specifically talk about our damming process here at the Hoover Dam, and all the damming process down at Lake Mead and Lake Powell reservoirs. And this New Zealand article basically talks about how when you dam things off like that, it stops the natural, the plains from having natural flooding. Mm-hmm. And it causes it actually does cause levels to go down. The cloud seeding that they're doing, which, I mean, this hasn't been kept from us. Our government is admitting we're doing the cloud seeding. But the cloud seeding, actually, what they do is they shoot either silver iodine or dry ice, which is funny because dry ice is the solid form of carbon dioxide, which they're supposedly trying to get rid of, into the clouds, and it makes it rain.
Actually, the truth is we will actually fly over fields of crops with carbon dioxide because that helps the plants breathe.
Yeah.
And we are actually at a deficit. So farmers will literally fly carbon dioxide injections over their fields so that their plants can.
I thought we'd moved on to cow farts, people.
Yeah. I just thought that was an interesting fact.
Look, let's face it. All right. And this is weird. This is a dichotomy. So the government views us as tax cattle. We are insignificant insofar as all we're worth is the taxes we give them so that they can continue to do their games.
I would argue that it's the productivity that we produce, not the taxes.
Sure.
The taxes are just a medium of how they can motivate us to move from point A to point B.
Sure. But it is so weird. I think that according to them, I think we're the pollutant they want to get rid of.
Well,
to them,
it's more and more seeming so that way with the things that they say. And, I can read that script from Klaus Schwab's book, The Great Reset. But I mean, and he talks about how they will intentionally create a food and a water crisis. We're seeing the food shortage. We know that the fertilizers and gas we taken from farmers, those Dutch, I think I sent you the thing with the Dutch farmers, but they're being forced to sell their farms to the government and vacate their farms now.
They're being expropriated. Not even sold. They're being expropriated. The government's just saying this is now ours.
Yeah.
And it's what they say, something like 600 farms or something like that.
I don't remember
something like
but
I don't know, it was a crazy number, something like 20, maybe not quite 20% of the farms there. And I was just, that's insane. That is insane.
Well, the Dutch are insane.
We're all a little insane. So, but, and then the mussels at Lake Powell, right? They've introduced the mussels and they start multiplying and they filter the algae, it kills the fish. So a lot of this climate change stuff that we're hearing, there's other reasons for it. And then we've got what is it called? Pump Springs. It's in Ogden. There is a natural spring that comes up that pumps out 60 gallons of water per minute. It's been there for a very long time. It's on the tourist attraction in Utah for people to see. We've got natural springs. So now we have to think about, okay, so our water's being reallocated and diverted. There's claims about these reservoirs being drained. It seems a little fishy. We do have reservoirs all over the place that are completely full. It's just the main reservoirs that are a water supply that are supposedly drying up at a quick rate.
Have you seen Tooele's reservoir?
I haven't seen that one.
Looks pretty glum from the last time I've seen it. I can't say it's.
I've heard that Vernon's,
I think it's pretty low.
I've heard Vernon's pretty low.
Are these the main water supply reservoirs down here? Yeah.
Now Tooele's water for culinary mostly comes from cisterns, and so does Grantsville's. Those settlement, it's just right there, is mostly agricultural. Grantsville's got 2 open air, and they're mostly agricultural. Vernon's agricultural, but yeah, but they've been low this time of year every year.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. They do go through natural cycles and phases of, we have a little bit of a drier summer. It happens. They go down, they come up. And it's funny that they're saying that the Great Salt Lake's at an all-time low, because I found the chart of the records right from our government website, and it was lower. Well, when was it? I remember when it was, but there were points where it was actually lower.
Before that flood, it was pretty dry.
Yeah.
I think, if I remember seeing some of these video feeds of satellite pictures of the Salt Lake going up and down.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
and I think one day we're probably going to get a flood again, and we'll need those pumps. That's my prediction. If I had to bet a Bitcoin.
Yeah, maybe.
A whole Bitcoin?
Why not? It's not worth that much anymore.
Well, yeah. So then I came across Paul Power.
Give Dave a minute. He's got to wipe the tear away. All right, go on.
You okay, Dave? So then I came across Paul Power, and he's a primary water expert. He's from Hungary, and he survived the Hungarian water crisis, where NATO came in and basically wiped out their water infrastructure. And he's devoted his life to water ever since. And he talks about how water is made in the Earth's crust. And so now think about geysers and hot springs and where all that water is constantly shooting up out from, because it's not from the ocean. It's not from the rain. Now, some of the, rain can kind of go down and settle down in there, but water is made in the Earth's crust. And there were articles. USA Today had a 2014 article. There was another article that I read in 2017. I don't remember who, I remember who did that one.
Well, hold on. You said water is made in the Earth's crust.
Yes.
Water is...
Our Earth's crust contains all the elements.
Contains water, but I don't think it can make water.
No. So it's got hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon. It contains the Earth's elements, right? Mm-hmm. And under the pressure of the Earth's crust, it can push these molecules together. What makes water 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen? Mm-hmm. And that's where he talks about that is where this water comes from. There was a 2014 US Today article. There was another 2007. I've read several articles in the past where they've come out and they have basically said in articles, and CNN has done it as well, saying scientists have found that water is made deep in the Earth's crust.
Okay.
They've come out and said it themselves. And you've got water just, these springs, we've got them everywhere coming up. And so, and that's the same thing with, talked to people who have worked in oil fields for a very long time. They're older now, and where the oil fields have dried up. So they say it's from fossil fuels, but these oil fields have dried up and they've gone out years later and they're filled back to the full again, or full to the top again.
Oh boy, there's a Google cancellation statement if Bill Gates is ever
right. So So we won't get too much into that, but a lot, some of these things are renewable resources that are produced in the Earth's crust. And he has been going around and just his entire life. He's been documenting it. You can see it on his website. They've stopped teaching drillers how to drill properly. You can't go down like 10 feet. You have to go down like 400 feet. But there's when you go down, he teaches drillers how to drill properly, where to look so that you'll hit successfully every time, and drill down far enough to where you have this renewable source of water, clean water, and they've never run out. He's been doing it his whole life, and he's got it all documented. He's been drilling wells all over the globe. So, and we had CNN even, they came out with articles saying scientists have found out water's made in the Earth's crust. They've admitted it themselves. So if they know that we've got renewable clean water in the Earth's crust, why aren't we talking? Why is in California, they have come out now and they said, anybody who owns a well on your own that's your water, right? You buy the land, you buy the water rights to that land, you drill a well, get your own water. Now all of a sudden California's come out and said, you have to start paying for your own water. And they've got surveillance out there and monitoring to make sure that they're doing it. So this kind of brings me to where I've studied the World Economic Forum white papers, right?
What is the World Economic Forum? Let's start with that.
It's an organization. It's an organization of, corporations in different countries kind of that have come together, and they meet once a year at Davos, and they talk about their plans for quote unquote world peace and the environment and protecting the environment, and their ideas of what they would like to see on a global level down into every local community. So it's a group of other people, and now they've partnered up with government, and they have played a huge role in even the ESG stuff that we're hearing about. I don't know how much you guys have talked about that or how much the audience knows of that, but environmental social governance, and it's basically the Chinese Communist social credit score. And you're speaking,
it's worse than that, because it's not a government designating, it's corporations designating it down onto people who are patrons, and then corporations designating it amongst each other through the banking system.
It's already done through the credit score, but now they're going to add wokeness.
Yeah. Yeah. If you aren't socially acceptable and calling people by their pronouns, and your credit score goes down. If you're speaking misinformation, quote unquote, your credit score goes down. If you're not work for a company that is environmental friendly, or you're not vaccinated, or you haven't had a recent PCR test, or whatever it is that they think is socially acceptable, your credit score goes down, and your credit score gets too low. Even down to like if you're associating with the wrong people, your credit score goes down. That gets too low. And all of a sudden you can't scan on to the mass transit. You can't access medical services or health insurance. You can't get a bank loan, whatever the stipulations are that they put on that. And we have been up at the Capitol fighting this because, our state treasurer, Marlo Oaks, who's amazing, and Ken Ivory, one of our legislators, has come out and speaking out against ESG because they see how dangerous this is, because it's being presented to legislation. And our legislation here in Utah wants to force this on us.
It's really a form of eugenics, if you think about it, because people like me will not be able to access the money and buy food, and I die, and I don't breed. So who breeds are going to be these beta males that will be completely genetically engineered for complacency. And you get this fantastic population that will obey the rules and do what they are supposed to. And it's, people think it's science fiction, but
No.
it is possible to have traits like complacency bred into you, and it's not that hard, and they're figuring these things out at a rapid speed.
Right. Well, and just in China, the lockdowns happened. They locked people in their own homes because they have they can control their gadgets in their homes, and
they
Shanghai,
welded the dang doors shut.
Did they?
It's illegal to go out without your cell phone in China.
Well, they've got robots and drones monitoring,
but they
making
welded
sure that
the
they're in their
doors shut on
homes.
your homes.
Australia had helicopters.
So people were jumping out about, Australia. I don't know how closely related that Australian PM is to Adolf, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, Dan Andrews.
Shave your mustache.
I have friends in Australia, and so they video chat me, and they called me, and they're like, check this out, check out how crazy this is. And they turn their camera, there's a helicopter on their backyard. I'm like, what are they doing out there? They're making sure we're not out in our backyards. They want us inside.
How about you watch the Chinese one where the guy wanted to have his little dog have a walk out in the yard. So he was like 10th floor. So he lowers the dog down on a harness so the dog can crap next in the yard and then raises the dog back
Did you
up.
see how they
Clever.
went out? That they went out in China and actually collected a huge amount of pets.
Oh yeah.
Made them turn their pets in so they
not
could kill
just
them.
China.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me.
Australia.
Do they eat them or what?
Well,
They
China,
killed
they
them.
probably did, but Australia, they took them out and killed them.
Because of
I think it
COVID.
was some insane number, like 25,000 pets from shelters were.
They were saying, and they took them from people's homes. They were. This is back when they were saying COVID can spread through the animals and
Fruit and goats, like they found out in Nigeria or something. Anyways, and then Australia went and New Zealand. They all went batshit. They all just. I mean, right now,
crazy.
the last 2 years proved everything I've been saying the whole time we've been doing this show. The government and the media is your enemy. And you may not be that. You are actually, they may not be your enemy, but you're theirs. And they will subjugate you. They will torture. There is no extent they will not go to. There is no cute little animal they won't step on to get their way.
Right. Well,
they're evil, pure evil.
They are. And I mean, in fairness, there are some, so these private, public, corporate partnerships with the government, it isn't just corporations anymore. They're in bed with the government, and the government is trying to push what it is they want into code. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where we've lost checks and balances, where we've got all three branches of government creating the strategic plans that the World Economic Forum wants here. And when you look at our strategic plans, they mimic. Now, I have read these documents, and everything that I've talked about today, I have documentation, I have video, there's some kind of evidence to back it up. It isn't just an opinion, but our strategic plans are almost verbatim to the World Economic Forum white papers, what they want us to do with our food, our water, even the affordable housing. The affordable housing we've got, it's done under something called opportunity zones, which if you go to it's GOED, the Government Office of Economic Development under Spencer Cox, him and his team are creating these right on our website, these opportunity zones, and they've teamed up with the Chelcie Gardner Policy Institute and Sorensen Impact Center through the University of Utah, which these when you start looking at who these people are, they're pretty corrupt. But the Rockefeller Foundation is implementing the World Economic Forum's opportunity zones, where they're doing these biodiversities, which I can talk about really briefly. But it says right in the Rockefeller Foundation's papers that they've teamed up with the Sorensen Impact Center through the University of Utah. So our governor Cox is partnered with the Rockefeller Foundation and the World Economic Forum to bring their plans directly into our state. And this is where the legislators are doing this. What are the barriers keeping us from doing this? We're going to create a bill that will make this legal for us to implement this here. And then they get it passed, and then they also sit on the boards that implement this. And they sit on the boards of corporations that are partnered with the World Economic Forum and United Nations directly. But when I go through the World Economic Forum white papers, and then I look at Utah strategic plans, one of the things that you're hearing right now is, so we've got the smart meters, and we've got this, you're going to hear lead piping and old infrastructure, and we need to go in and replace the infrastructure, right? Mm-hmm. We're hearing that a lot. And you hear there was a fire here in a rural area here in Utah where they're basically saying we need to completely redo the water infrastructure there, or the town's not going to survive and we're going to have to dissolve the town, which sounds very 1984. And I'm starting to wonder, I'm like, I wonder if I'm knowing the World Economic Forum and who they are and what they believe, I'm starting to wonder if I'm going to find the same narrative elsewhere in the country. So I found it in California. I found it in, I don't remember exactly which states, but there were at least 5 other different states where I just did a Google search for, fire, water infrastructure needs replacement. And these articles come up in all of these states, basically giving the same narrative that there's been a fire, the water infiltration system can't handle it. All of a sudden, they can't. It's like we've never had fires before. And The carbon from the ash and charred soil is mixing with the chlorine from the water treatment plants and becoming carcinogenic. And so now they need to give government control. They need to for the government to come in and to be able to regulate all of these water sources where they can install new water infrastructure and replace this water infrastructure. So if any of y'all have any carbon atoms on you, don't jump into a swimming pool with that chlorine. It's funny, this new science we've never heard of before that all of a sudden seems to keep popping up. And I find it funny that supposedly it's going to become carcinogenic, and here we've got the arsenic. It seems to be the narrative across the board. And what's in our strategic plans is what they're not telling you is they are replacing it with artificial intelligent smart piping, which is their pipes that are connected to a satellite, and the satellite can look down and see exactly if there's a leak, but they can see exactly in your house which faucet you're using, how much your water you're using, when, like in real time.
Why is that bad though?
Well, I'll get to that. So it is
Hold on, I just want to say, imagine there's a guy watching that and he's like, yeah, that one was about a 3-pounder just went by. Like they've got little, what would you call it? Pots on who in the neighborhood lays the heaviest logs. What day they start making bets. Just throwing it out there. Just wondering. Never mind. Sorry.
You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the World Economic Forum wants all of this smart water piping as well. And what they want to do is control the amount of water that we can have. So now what they can do is digitally shut the water off at any point that they want with this and the smart meters.
We found that out in Colorado just 2 weeks ago.
Denver had their air, the AC and the heat.
They started killing the air conditioning.
They locked it on them
through the smart, whatever the smart meters that people that they gave you. What was it? $10 a month to jump onto that bandwagon. 18 years ago it kicked off, and they put a little box in there, and it gave them the power to kill your AC.
Yeah. But they don't tell you that they have that they're installing things that they can control.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Why would you turn over,
but $10 a month?
That?
Oh my.
I know.
Oh my.
I mean, think about it. That is a Big Mac and a large fry and a month.
Yeah. Our legislation has
in California, that's a half a pack of smokes.
Yeah.
So sounds like a great deal to me.
Half a pack of smokes.
Hey, I heard if I get the chip implant, I get free internet.
Really?
Right?
Right to your head, obviously.
And you know what? Here's the thing with the free stuff, right? Is okay. So in these opportunity zones, what the World Economic Forum wants, and again, our strategic state plans are copycatting verbatim the World Economic Forum plans. And Klaus Schwab, World Economic Forum president, CEO, founder, states that actually I don't know if I have that still pulled up, but he basically states that they're going to create a pandemic of water and food shortages because they will basically be able to take control. And when you think about that, they're able to control the water and the food. We know that the food shortages there's something fishy up with that, right? They're able to control the water and the food. You don't have water for 3 days. What rights would you be willing to give up for some water?
You could get rid of so many of the right people.
You could.
I mean, like literally the right people.
Yeah.
You make it sound like the government's targeting the right people. I don't know where you get these crazy notions. I'm going to tell a parable. I told you the other day. So Stalin is in his dacha. While everyone else is living in squalor, he had this beautiful mansion on the Volga. A whole compound was his because, of buying for the people, whatever. And he brought a chicken in, and he's with all his generals.
I hate this story.
I love chicken.
He brought a chicken in and just started violently ripping all its feathers off. and he threw it down on the ground, and the chicken's bleeding and injured. And then out of his pocket, he pulls some seed and holds the seed out for the chicken, and the chicken still comes to him. And he says, see, it doesn't matter what you do to them if you're their source of food.
Yeah. And, and with that, I'm glad you bring that up, because with Stalin, the way that he implemented things was every once in a while,
every government
years are off, but they did it he did it in 5-year increments.
It wasn't just Stalin though. Every government did 5 years plans.
Mm-hmm.
Our government has done 5-year plans forever. Well, I would say technically 4 or 6-year plans has been our government's
Mm-hmm.
Well, you try to do a 10-year plan and keep on track with that, because the way things change, I mean, look at our cell phones, look at our technology.
I just love that we elect the seediest, most corrupt people to government, because they're the ones who are willing to do anything to mind worm into our head, and then we expect that they're going to do good things for us.
Yeah. Well, so Stalin does it in 5-year increments. They go for the food and the water first. You're out without water for 3 days. I mean, people are usually, history has shown, they're willing to give up a lot of their rights and power for some water and food.
For sure.
And you see, we see stuff going on in China right now, and, them waiting out in line to hopefully maybe get some food if their social credit score is high enough. They called it the Industrial Revolution under Stalin, and the World Economic Forum is flat out calling it the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And
yeah.
The World Economic Forum, the similarities between Stalin and what they want is actually, it's very scary. And then you see that our state strategic plans are copycatting that. And so then I started looking into, because they've got these water conservation efforts, which, by the way, we do also have an Energy Emergency Preparedness Act, where our legislation I think it was 2021 general session, they gave our governor the authority to, if they feel that there is an energy emergency, so like with Denver, they just locked their air on them, right? Our governor can, via executive order, give involuntary curtailments on our energy. So either severely limit or completely take away our ability to use our energy sources. And in the definition of energy resources, you want to know what they list? Wood. Now, do you remember, maybe it was a decade ago or so, when they were trying to come out here and say that they wanted to make wood-burning stoves illegal because supposedly it harms the environment?
They were actually, and it wasn't up until COVID, I think that still stood. They were going to houses who had chimneys that were releasing smoke, and they were trying to muscle their way.
Are you saying our police officers were actually going to houses?
In Salt Lake City, they were. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Wow.
So they are getting very authoritative with this, but wood. So if they want to limit our access to wood, or make it so we're not allowed, make it illegal to burn wood when we're in, supposedly we need to conserve energy, that's in Utah state plans now too. And you have to start asking yourself, why do they think they have the right to do this? Like, why are they putting these things in force ahead of time? And we've got a Rainwater Harvesting Act and the Stormwater Amendments, where it is state law right now. They haven't been using it, but they can utilize it whenever they want, saying that it is, you have to register to collect rainwater on your own property. All of the rainwater belongs to the state. So a puddle in the street.
So even if you do it at the levels that is allowed by Utah state law, which is 100 gallons above ground, and you said the number the other day below ground, you still have to register to do that.
You have to register to do it. And
I heard all those rules went away.
No.
Uh-huh.
Nope. I'll show you right where it's at.
How long before we have to register to do like simple things in our day-to-day life?
Right.
Like we have to go stand before our betters and say, I am buying a new pair of socks this week. I'll fill out this form. Triplicate.
Well, who knows with at this rate, it's insane. And 2,700 gallons total, because you've got underground 2,500 gallons of water that you're allowed to store underground, and then above ground you can store up to 100 gallons. So 2,700 gallons total water for productive use. And it says in state code, the rest is to go into the ground. And this for beneficial use, 2,700 gallons for bathing, for drinking, for cooking, for cleaning, for watering your garden if you need food.
And that's where I asked you the other day, is that capacity?
I'm pretty
that
sure
you
it's
carry?
capacity.
Or do you have to,
It's-
when you register, have to measure, how,
I think it's just at any
Like
one
you're
given
over
time, because
and
it
just-
doesn't say per month or annually. I think it's just at one given time you can have that much stored.
I'm sure these are all for a very good reason.
A very good reason. And you are not allowed to sell, trade, or buy water. It is illegal. You will have criminal charges pressed against you. That's theft. And you have to start asking yourself, what is with these bills that they're passing and they want in place? And they've got these conservation grants and subsidies, right? Now, we've learned with the government that anytime they give out grants or subsidies, what they're doing is they're stealing money out of your paycheck through taxes, and they're giving a portion of that back to you if you use it a certain way. And what they're doing now is they are, and just so you're aware, the legislation wrote law, and now it is required by water companies to charge us extra for water to encourage water conservation. So thank your legislators for that one if your water bill's gone up. But they're encouraging people to rip out their agriculture turfs and lawns and replace it with non-agricultural soil and turf to conserve water. Now, if you don't want to have to, if that works for you, great, and you hate watering your lawn, it's great we have those options, but just think about with these food shortages coming, if they're able to control the water and you take away your ability to plant your own agriculture.
Yeah, that's tearing out your lawn. No big deal. I want to do that. It's so expensive to do, but I plan on doing that. But to forcibly replace it with something that
down to non-agricultural soils
that could not become arable land in a pinch.
And they implement these things step by step over the years, and something little that's not that big of a deal, you get used to it, they normalize it, then they take another step. If they came in and did everything all at once, we'd go to war. They know that they couldn't do that. So what do? They're patient and they implement these things step by step.
You boil the frog slowly.
Yeah.
I've got another little side story. Dr. Guillotine invented his mechanism to make capital punishment painless.
Well, that's nice of him.
That's interesting, right? You know that the hangman's noose was invented by a doctor and scientifically studied to cause a quick death.
At least they're thoughtful about it.
It's interesting. Right? Dr. Guillotine, he was horrified by what was happening in the French Revolution.
Right.
Horrified by what the Jacobins were doing. And that's why he invented the guillotine.
Well, Hitler didn't tell the Jews that they were going to a magical shower, and he had music on the way.
Did he play music on the way? But no, Dr.
Violinists.
Guillotine was,
I didn't know that.
was horrified by the murders. That's why he invented the guillotine. And the guy who invented the hangman's noose did it because he was tired of seeing botched executions by the state. So he invented the hangman's noose to make it a quick and painless death.
Could you imagine if chickens had podcasts where they complain about how the farmers chop their heads off and take their eggs? That's kind of like what we're doing right now.
It is. And much like chickens, we are livestock.
And at the end result of it is a chicken nugget machine.
We are livestock.
Poor chickens.
Hey, you know what? How long before Soylent Green comes real and they start feeding us to ourselves?
Okay, so that's part of the World Economic Forum's
Did that really come up?
alternative proteins.
Human
There
beings?
is a video.
There is, yeah. People was on there. They were talking about, it was a Norwegian.
A scientist dude.
No, he was in the government. And he said, we can't let deceased humans go to waste.
Mm-hmm. We need, as an alternative protein, we should start eating ourselves, start eating our dead. And
Come on, guys.
No,
Come on.
in the World Economic Forum
A Norwegian?
papers, under alternative proteins, it says upcycled citizens.
Okay, that sounds better. All right.
Right?
I feel better.
Upcycled. So I don't know if that correlates directly, but it's a little weird. But they do want us eating bugs and other sorts. That they've come out and admittedly, they talk about that openly. They don't want us eating meat. They want us eating bugs and cockroaches and bug bars.
And what did you call us? Upcycled
Upcycled citizens. That is one of the things listed on their papers.
That is-
Yeah, and I can provide that to anyone who wants
Sounds
it.
kind of buttery,
It's gross.
right?
But so then there's these community gardens, right? Has anybody heard about the community gardens? And they're having the communities come out and help plant gardens. And it sounds like a great idea, except that I found the contracts that they have ready to go that they're going to implement ESG. They're going to put a gate around the garden. Now you have to buy a plot or rent a plot. You have to help maintain the entire garden. You can only plant certain types of plants. They can only be so high. You can only plant so many. You're not allowed to plant trees, and you need to obey the garden rules. If you don't obey all the rules and implement ESG, the social credit score, they will lock you out of the garden. They'll take your key away. And then they've got the vertical farms, the indoor farming, where it's all bioengineered indoor farming, where it's government funded food. And so now we've ripped out all of our agricultural turf, and we've seen those video. I mean, have you seen that video compilation of all those farmers that showed the letters that they got in the mail from the federal government showing the subsidies to destroy their crops?
Yeah, making them destroy their crops. Or
they were paid millions of dollars. So then they're like, all right, well, here I go. And they film themselves destroying their crops.
And they don't get paid.
No, they got millions of dollars in subsidies from the government.
Okay, well that's
to
great.
do that.
As long as we can keep printing money, we can do things
Right?
like that. It's like magic.
Why do they want us getting rid of our food supply? Why do they not want us to have the ability to have agricultural, soil and grasses on our own land? Yet they're creating these community gardens in places where we can come that are government regulated to get our food. It's people really need to start asking themselves some of these questions. And
Are you sure this isn't a conspiracy theory?
we want to label that, we can, but what I am talking to you about, it is documented. It is nothing that I'm talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
And Jared wants to watch Cops apparently over here. He's getting bored with this conversation. He wants to watch TV.
Hey, I studied.
He's looking for recipes about upcycled citizens.
Oh, no. I want to play this video. It's a Swedish scientist. So I said Norwegian, Sweden. To us in the U.S.,
it's all the same. Yeah, they all look the same. White and pasty, blonde haired, blue eyes.
Blonde hair, blue eyes.
Like they've been eating upcycled citizens for some time.
That's so gross. Well, and they want to put food into our fertilizers now, or humans into the fertilizer, like to use that as a fertilizer now. Because
okay, it says Stockholm Economics for Friends.
Magnus Soderlund, if you want to look him up.
It says human meat could be derived from dead bodies. He said taboos against cannibalism could change if people were awakened to the idea and simply tried human flesh.
The
The
Sweeney Todd.
idea of human meat pies doesn't come without risk or social taboos, for that matter. Some tribes practice eating the dead, which led to kuru, the disease known as laughing to death. That's the cannibalism disease.
Infectious protein found in contaminated human brain tissue.
But we can
It's
look
not
for
even
that,
infectious
can't we?
protein. It's not. No, it is. What it is the prions are too closely related. So people get kuru if they eat monkey, because the prions are too genetically closely related, and they multiply, and it causes a wrinkle in your genetic code because you have this weird shaking disease. Did a whole show on it. Wild stuff.
But I mean, everything that I am saying, I mean, if you want to label it a conspiracy theory, you can. But I mean, you have to ask yourself I'm not telling you what to believe here, right? You all have to ask yourself some of these questions of why they would want to do this. But everything that I have talked about today, it is a fact. It's documented. It's been presented to legislation. There are bills pushing this stuff forward. They are actively talking about pushing some of this stuff forward and passing new bills and legislation. Now, they're the white papers that I've read through, strategic plans. It is all documented. Everything I've talked about today is a fact. And, the World Economic Forum, they have what are called these biodiversities. And what it is
Biodiverse cities.
so stupid.
That is outstanding, man.
Isn't that clever?
Who knew our leaders had such punabilities.
Yeah, in these opportunity zones. And what it is it's a combination of smart cities with green spaces and community gardens, and a digital ID with your vaccine passport, and implement ESG, or a social credit score. And now,
So basically, it's like a Democrat playground.
pretty much,
Democrat program.
I want you guys to think about all of this quote unquote free stuff, right? When it's free, we know it's never free because it comes from our tax dollars, but all of this free mass transit, affordable housing, affordable, universal health care that they want to expand. It's government regulated. It's government controlled is the problem when it's funded by our tax dollars. And so this so what they're doing is they're creating these walking communities with these smart cities. And what they're saying, they're talking about how obesity is a problem now. Obesity, all these health problems. We should create these walking communities. And again, this is all in their white papers and in our strategic plans. They have all stated this. Create these walking communities to help with obesity, but then why do we need to travel? Everything's within walking distance. Why do we need these cars? And so the way to, and the affordable housing, right? The affordable housing, it's all smart homes, smart fridges, a smart heater and air conditioning temperature.
That stuff works if they pile us all into cities like the megapolis off of Judge Dredd.
Oh, no,
That all works if they pile us into cities. Judge Dredd.
Or if you plug into a matrix like
Now,
Odd.
they could do that, but still they have to pile us into cities. They have to centrally locate us. And then if you're on the outside of that, like on Judge Dredd, you'll be considered like wildlingers or cannibals or the outsiders. And that's, I think they would love that. That would, I mean, honestly, that would, nothing would make governments happier than to have us all allocated into one place where they only have to preach in one place. They only have to visit one place. I mean, how annoying must it be for Fetterman and Oz to have to travel around however many different cities in Pennsylvania to become senator when they could just go to one place,
Well, and they want us in districts. And
well, of course.
Yeah. And kind of where my brain goes is.
Well, that's because they need underlings. So that way a rep will have something to do,
Well, and I wonder if, are they going to limit the amount of people coming into one district at a time so people can organize? Like my brain kind of starts to go there.
It could be. It could be. I mean, honestly, I think when we get robotic full law enforcement is when the game is over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, they are huge on this transhumanism movement right now.
Well, yeah. Well, they love trans everything. They missed an I when they were 5 on their favorite thing, and they wrote down trans. It meant trains. As every 5-year-old knows, trains are the best thing. 5-year-old boy, I don't know what 5-year-old girls like. But anyways, no, it's I think once they have AI as our law enforcement services, as our subjugation services that will obey no matter what they see. Because right now with police officers, yeah, you can get some police officers to do some horrendous stuff, but there's still a huge amount that are honest people, like our local
firewood police. Where do you find firewood police?
Firewood police.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane, but it had happened in Utah.
It happened. They were going to, I remember the report on KUTV.
They kill you for pot.
And they spun it. They spun it in a positive way.
They always do.
And I stood there shocked. I mean, people stepped on my jaw as they walked by. I was at work because that's the only time I ever watch the news because, at work, they turn on the TV in the break room. But I was shocked. I was like, this is insane.
Yeah, it's and the thing that's scary for me again is, and maybe we can come back and get into who's involved and how. I've talked to you about how I've looked at the boards and the financial documents, and I've mapped out who's tied to who. And who
I think we need to
boards.
do another show for that day, and I'm getting a board. We're going to put pictures on it and getting some red.
I want people to know who is involved, how. But what scares me is a lot of these people and these legislators and people under Governor Cox and Spencer Cox himself are directly partnered with the World Economic Forum. And so they sit on the boards of these corporations and on the boards of these, the real estate companies, the developers who are developing the smart homes and
they're good. They stand to get rich off of it.
They do, but they're also partnered. They're partnered with the World Economic Forum
Why
and what
wouldn't
they
you?
want to implement. And the World Economic
You get in good with the guys that are going to make other people eat other people, and you
Bugs.
in a world of cannibalism, you want to be the cannibal.
But if I don't eat the brain, I'm okay, correct?
not the brain tissue.
It's also carried in nerves.
There you go. I wouldn't need anything.
But if you add rice or kind of like mix it up,
Peel off it.
Disgusting.
I mean, wouldn't that change?
But kuru is well known. It's a huge thing. It like they call it laughing death. They call it the shaking disease. They have all sorts of names because it causes you to have, I think it's Parkinson's like symptoms. And we never see any old cannibals.
You're right. Jeez.
Wait, how do you know? You've seen cannibals?
Have you ever heard the story of Jameson, the guy who makes the whiskey?
No.
So Jameson in 18 whenever, I'm going to actually pull it up because I like for people to see proof.
Oh boy.
Jameson.
I've never seen it spelled with an I.
It might not be.
There's
Buys. You can feel free to read this aloud if you want.
Buys a slave girl to waiting for his typing feed.
Cannibals.
Cannibal. Okay. A girl just to watch her be eaten by cannibals.
No,
So
he fed
James
the
Jameson
cannibals.
in 1880s, the rich dude, whatever, bought a 10-year-old slave girl so that he could draw pictures of her being
was
eaten by
10.
cannibals.
Ay.
What a lovely person.
That's our leaders, folks. That's our greats.
Now, what did the picture look like?
I wonder if they publish that. But yeah,
I'm like,
there's a slave trader
Okay.
he bought him from. Note that slave trader does not look European. Just throwing it out there.
he has very dark skin for a slave
Very
trader.
dark skin, almost like a movie that was just made. That's controversy. We shouldn't talk about. But yeah, James Jameson in 1880s bought a 10-year-old girl, a slave girl, an African slave girl, from an African slave trader to feed her to cannibals so he could draw pictures of it.
Did he make like an oil painting or was it charcoal?
I'll bet it was charcoal. I'm just thinking maybe pencil, 1880s. The pencil had just been invented by Napoleon. So sure.
Napoleon invented the pencil
That's
and
the
Al
rumor.
Gore invented the internet, right?
The rumor is that Napoleon invented it because pen would run in the rain. And what was Napoleon, everyone? He was an artillery officer, and writing was extremely important.
Oh, I did not know he was an artillery officer.
He was. Anyways, but yeah, James Jameson, one of our leaders, one of our betters, I dare say. Wealth, power, international intrigue, all those things that, yeah, I'm not saying Klaus Schwab would ever buy a slave girl to feed the cannibals. I'm just saying he probably owns the drawings.
Well, cannibals get hungry.
They do. They
What are you going to do? Let them go hungry?
You know,
You're such an insensitive.
I
prick
know.
sometimes.
Why would I
Right?
think that I could turn them on to? I mean, honestly, if they had a cut of 10-year-old and say prime rib, I know which way I'd go.
It's a very disturbing conversation.
Anyway,
Well, hey, we might be getting there with
and that's another thing we
with
missed.
up-processed citizen.
Upcycled citizen.
Upcycled.
Citizen.
I'm upcycled. You know what? I've said this before. I said it on the other show I do. to the LA Cannibal Club. A lot of notorious members in that. Look it up on your own time. I would suggest looking at their lasagna recipe.
Oh God.
But I would, I think, $1 million, I'd sign over my dead body to him, after I drop over
Well,
dead.
if you're dead, doesn't matter.
That's right.
It's like buying
I'll
an
be
insurance
honest.
policy for yourself
I'll be
before
honest.
you're dead.
I'll be honest. I plan on probably getting cremated. I've already told the boy, whatever's cheapest.
You don't know what's going to happen to you.
That's true. I might cremate myself in a fiery car wreck. But I mean, I could go for like pennies on the dollar, honestly.
I don't think I'll give a crap once I'm gone, to be honest.
Dude, we're trying to make a buck here, right?
He's trying to make a buck.
You could do it in Bitcoin.
All right. Well, then you got me convinced.
Think about it, dude. You could sell to yourself. Like
Anyone want to go into business with these guys?
those dudes that sell themselves to science to get rubberized and plasticized to be displayed at the Da Vinci.
Do they get money before they're dead?
Or I don't know if they sell or give probably their kids donate it because their kids don't want to pay for a funeral. Cheap bastards. But think about this. Sign a contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
I kick the bucket, deliver me to them. They make some lasagna, whatever. I don't care. But, maybe.
I don't think we'd all taste the same, Jerry. I'm just saying.
Maybe, well, there's marbling you got to account for, but whatever. Hey,
that's why we got to turn the AC off once in a while to keep us marbled.
Don't worry, the government will turn it off for you.
With enough Tabasco.
You believe in lizard people yet?
It doesn't matter.
Lizard people. Yeah. So, I mean, and so then when you we've got the smart homes, and got the hospitals and retail all right there, but the smart homes, the smart transit, now all of a sudden the only way to travel is when they tell you where you can go, when, and if you're allowed to. And now you've got the smart energy, the solar panels that you think you're getting for free. They are going to implement that, has to be plugged into the grid. They have the World Economic Forum, United Nations. They all have and you can go look it up. It's not a secret. It's a global digital grid that they want everybody. They're calling us the digital global citizens, and they want us all plugged into their grid where they can control everything that's digital. And so now we're plugged in digitally with the water as well, with these smart meters and artificial intelligent smart water piping. And when I hear these stories about how they want water infrastructure everywhere, and to bring its rural areas is a huge target of theirs. They're calling rural areas underserved areas. They don't have all the same opportunities they do as we do with the transit and so they want to bring the water structure out there, the transit system, and the broadband, which they are talking openly too. We do have satellite ports under the Utah Inland Port Authority here, which we should talk about another day because that's scary. But where they're going to be regulating and controlling, like surveilling things with drones. I mean, it's in our plans and stuff. So, but I mean, if they can't they want to bring it out to the rural areas, and so they are all connected to this digital system and this digital grid. And if they can't bring it out to them, then we've got these articles saying, well, if we can't bring this new water infrastructure out after these fires or whatever it is, they're just not telling you it's artificial, it's digital water piping, then we need to dissolve the town. And they're starting to talk about how they need to dissolve all these towns and have them bring them in.
So when they dissolve a town, do they physically remove you from your house, your property? And then you get assigned a cubicle or a pod in the city, in the designated locale. Like, I imagine eventually Salt Lake would have to be moved because they need to get us to Denver where they can really button us down, right?
No, Salt Lake is Democrat. So
Salt Lake is.
they're ready.
But no, I don't think it matters which party.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think, well, Denver's even more Democrat. But no, I mean, in Judge Dredd, Denver was one of the mega cities. And they had like a railway system that went between all of them.
They're turning us they have a plan to turn Utah into 4 regions, 4 districts. And so it will be Utah County, Salt Lake County, I think Davis County, and I forget the other one, but like they're going to expand those,
Do I
and
get
they
to
want
pick
us
my
all in
region?
4. I have no idea yet.
What's
I don't
the
know about that.
advantage to it all?
What do you mean?
Control.
Well, from our perspective, as
from ours.
yeah, I mean, they have to give you a carrot somewhere. $10 off a month on your electricity bill.
Bingo, there it is.
For now. For now.
And maybe they'll put a little cheese on that human burger.
I don't like cheese, so
I know. Yeah, we talked
I'm a
about
picky
what
eater.
you don't eat.
Don't worry, it's not cheese.
Yeah.
probably
Yeah,
well,
everyone have a look at this right here.
Oh my gosh.
Mm.
Yeah, the whole
So we're at the cannibalclub.org.
Stop it. This isn't real, is it?
Oh no, yes, it is. And they had the Cannibal in California, and I have
The
pictures.
Cannibal is a restaurant, and it's a restaurant that all the rich people go to. Do they serve people? I don't know,
Have you seen their menu?
but I'm willing to make an offer for
It
my
is
dead body.
California.
They've permanently shut it down. One of the things, like you'll see on the menu, like a 96-ounce tall boy. Like the names are a little, but yeah, it's called the Cannibal, and there's some weird things on their menu, and they did get permanently shut down, which I'm assuming they just, reopened somewhere else. But they tried to they came out with no, it's this is misinformation. It's been fact checked. This didn't exist. And they took it all down off Google search, but I had already taken pictures and stuff. And I went back in, I'm like, I wonder if they thought about taking it off Google Maps. And I went in Google Maps and typed in the Cannibal in Google Maps, and it all still came up in there.
Okay, well, this Cannibal Club, not too long ago, actually talked about one of these menus mentioned human meat, and that has been changed. But the placenta lasagna, it's still placenta.
Is it really?
This is quickly becoming
So what it
disturbing.
says: substitute 1 layer of cheese for minced placenta.
How much would that cost?
I guess it depends on
Your ESG score?
the mother of the freshly born baby. I don't know what do hospitals do with placenta. Do you think like on a Fight Club where they have the dumpster of fat out back?
That's a whole other episode.
Do you think they have like a dumpster of placenta and you just go in there, kick the lid open, throw the garbage bag? Like, I mean, you could feed hordes if it's a garbage bag full of them. How big is a placenta? I'm not sure. I imagine probably
Placenta
yonder,
lasagna.
right? And you're mincing it, so you could stretch it. You could make it go far, or you could really.
Well, you know what? If they tighten down the water supply hard enough, people will give their placentas for the lasagna recipe to get some turn on.
Speaking of that, remember what I told you the other night about what one of our legislators found with that bill? Because they read my blog, and she comes back and she's like, I actually really like all of this, but there are some inaccuracies. And I'm like, I've read these bill with the bill. I've read this bill 4 times, right? Please tell me where the inaccuracies are. I'll get back to you. She calls back, never mind, I'm right. There are no inaccuracies. Apparently, the bill that they had passed since then, it's been altered. Someone's going in and changing the bills. And this is coming straight from one of our legislators. And there are bills now that I'm going on, and all of a sudden they're gone off the government website.
So
That's convenient.
So they can write a bill, and it sounds palatable. Something they could even do a floor vote on, like make a big news story about. Hey, we're gonna make it so moms and kids, love each other more.
It's not
And
that
then-
hard to alter text on the internet.
No. But she's going, what is going on, and who is doing this, and how many have they done this to? And so now things are in state code that apparently the bills that they actually voted on and passed aren't the actual bills that are in our code right now.
On another side note, if I was going to build a gun range out of, say, concrete, like a wall a wall to stop bullets, do you think cinder blocks? See, I really want to build a gun range just to, get more precise with my shooting. But what a cinder block wall! I need to do more research. Would I have to rubber mat it to stop the ricochets back? Anyways, go
Make sure you have ventilation, because when you ricochet off of something hard, the lead splits up and then you end up breathing it in.
What if the target was inside the trapped, unventilated place, and as I did my target practice, I stood on the outside? like in the fresh air, breeze blowing by. I could have a fan, one of them tall industrial round numbers blowing across my face.
Just eat some placenta lasagna before you go shoot.
I love how we went from cannibalism to water bills to bullets, like within like a 60-second
And
time.
somehow it all ties together.
How does it all tie together?
Yeah.
So government loves you. They love us.
Yeah.
That's what I always say. Government loves you.
They are our friend.
I should have that on a t-shirt.
The just so everyone's aware. Okay, so Mitt Romney has come out now and says we need to save the Great Salt Lake. And anything that man says, I don't trust. But Mitt Romney and Mike Lee are co-sponsoring a bill together. It's called the Houses Act of 2022. And how they are delivering this is basically that we're able to buy part of our land back from the federal government at a discount, which I'm all for that. But I read the bill and there's more to it. And he either needs to make some serious amendments to it or not pass it. But I would appreciate if people would write in or call in and tell them that you don't want this bill passed, because what it's doing is it's bringing World Economic Forum biodiversities right into our local communities. There are stipulations for how we use that land when we buy it back. First of all, Governor Cox has to approve each parcel. I think it's like 50% total after I looked at the numbers of it will go to commercial development. So it's not, they're saying it's for affordable housing on that land, but the majority of it's going to corporations and commercial development. And it doesn't really make sense. It's
like the Romney Group. It'll probably go to the Romney Group.
Probably.
Because I always wondered, like, okay, suppose we get this land back from the federal government. How do they give it back to us? You know, it's like, come on. Like, what? They're going to make a freaking lottery where we put our name in? No, they're just going to give it to whoever makes them more secure in their position of power.
A portion of it is to go to green spaces and community gardens. Mm-hmm. And you have to be tied to their built water infrastructure and the transit. You'd have to be near a transit hub. So it's not for just the local communities like they're saying it is, to do affordable housing and use that land where and how they want. It's basically, you need to create an entire smart city. And with all of the World Economic Forum biodiversity language.
Your AC.
Right. Now you're subject to all this. Now, part of the other two things that I did not like about this is one of them is, they are not to see if it is more financially feasible to do this on other areas. I don't know why that would be in there, but and then, what was the other part? My mind just went blank. I'm trying to remember the other part.
Sounds like you should just do a show on breaking down the bills that you read.
Probably.
Oh, seriously.
And I bet you people would actually tune into it because it's easier to have you read to us than us read the bill.
And that's the thing. What if you did like just a quick 15-minute, here's the bills I've read, here's what I found.
15 minutes?
Yeah.
One bill is 80 pages long.
I know, but you need to boil it down to 15 because I'm going to tell you why. This show is going to be at least 2 hours long.
Yeah, we've been talking for a while.
Not many people's going to sit through 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
10 to 15 minutes is optimal if you want everyone to absorb it. Mm-hmm. So you're going to need to script it down to say, this is what it says and does.
Yeah, I already have actually, and I can get the link to you. But Jason Preston with We Are the People Radio, he bought some software to generate some of those like letters that you can send into and it lists. I broke it down as to why it's no good, both financially and socially, and
to send letters to our legislature.
Yes, to write into legislation
on
this particular bill. I've already done it for you.
Are they responsive to that? Does that really work?
Well, what it does, so our legislators in Utah came back and said if it's one of those like auto-generated ones, we won't read them. We want them to come from the people directly. Okay. And so what his software does is it comes exactly from your email address, and then what we do is we give you the highlights and then we say, now you take this stuff and just send take the ones that are most important to you.
So it's important to reiterate this for me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want me to waste a lot of time spelling out words like pole smoker and dirt bag and things like that, because that would be
You
that would be
upcycled citizen.
You upcycled citizen, you.
that would be calories wasted. You want me to be professional and to the point, correct?
That would probably be best. I mean, you
Okay.
can be honest and blunt, but
Everyone loves a little color in their
Mm-hmm.
life.
Do they?
you
I
know
bet
what?
you they read those.
But from me, a little color. From me, a little color.
This is what I'm going to say. I would keep the phone calls and the emails professional, but you want to go off and say what you want to say to them. Join me in January through March during general legislative session at the Capitol.
You're going to go there?
Oh, yes. I will be there. And I've already
We've
had
never done
word
that.
for them.
We should.
Go to the heart of the beast.
Yeah.
Dude, that'd be like on Dragnet when they put on the sheepskin. What do you call them?
I will get you some
Chaps?
sheepskins. Don't
And
worry.
then went
You'll
in
be-
there
you'll be set.
to the devil worshiping thing. The nighttime is the right time. Huh?
Where you want to go. Oh, that was the other part.
Sheepskin
Sorry.
it is.
I just had that was the other part of it is it's in conjunction with 2 other federal block grants. So you have to take federal funding to do it anyway. So now the federal government's right back in regulating those parcels anyway.
I would say that they're stealing our money to buy us into slavery with it, but they're not. They're getting loans in our name to buy us into slavery with it.
Oh, they're getting loans in your child's
Yeah,
fetus's name.
Great grandchild. They are seriously. I think the wealthy know that we're in mid collapse and they're just trying to steal the silverware off the Titanic before it sinks.
I just tell you about Bitcoin, but I won't.
Well, if you're trying to save money, I agree. Even if Bitcoin takes another dump, when the dollar crashes, Bitcoin's going to be God. If you're trying to save money, do it. Seriously. I would say if you're one of those people who believes in having 6 months worth of savings, living in savings, I would do it in Bitcoin.
I mean, even if just 10% of the stuff we're talking about today is true, what if 10% of it really is true and the rest is just bullshit? Just that 10%,
Just that 10%.
is enough to say, you know what, maybe I better practice a little solidarity with freedom and self-sufficiency.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've been doing it. You got a hell of a garden going back there. Got that wild grown whatever falls.
And all that stuff just grows itself. I just have to sit back.
And he grows a wild garden.
Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
How are your tomatoes lately?
I don't have any tomatoes.
Okay, because I've been hearing from a lot of people right after it rains, their tomatoes are doing bad. And so I'm pretty sure there's stuff when they're cloud seeding. So
you want to greenhouse your tomatoes?
greenhouse, yes. And that you can do like a very cheap do it
Oh
yourself.
yeah, just a plastic wrap over
Windows.
PVC.
Yeah. Greenhouse your garden if you can, and don't rip out all your agricultural turf. and
Just
soil.
just take PVC, make bows out of it, and just plastic wrap over the top of it. That's pretty vicious greenhouse, really.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt.
I would say
Get your kids out there to do it too.
I haven't a clue. Yeah.
God, they're just sitting around. You know what I hate is an unproductive kid that just sits around and uses my tax dollars. in
See, me,
school.
I've been practicing to be Wagyu Jared. What I do is I lay around flaccid and massage myself so that I'm a good slice of highly marbled Wagyu Jared.
Do we still have listeners?
Oh boy.
Let's see. Do we still have anyone listening? Probably.
I hope not. Go away.
No, we
That
don't.
one poor unfortunate soul.
Oh, I love Alexia.
Yeah, Alexia was there.
Love Alexia.
She might still be there. I don't know who's still there. If you're listening, I'm sorry. I apologize for my
Thanks for
actions.
tuning in.
He'll taste better than he sounds.
But imagine. Okay, one, can you make butter out of people milk? Huh? Has anyone ever tried it?
No, I don't know.
I didn't know we
Maybe.
could milk each other.
Mothers have milk, right?
That's true.
You know,
And almonds have milk.
can you? They don't have
Not
nipples.
real milk.
But can you make butter out of it? Because
I would assume so.
sorry, because you have to have butter to prepare Wagyu properly.
Oh, I was listening.
I'm sorry, Katie. I'm sorry you were.
This has
part of
been
this.
quite the roller coaster of topics
anyways.
we've talked about today.
Anyways, yeah. No, it just look.
Our water. Here's the one thing I'm taking away from this that is a definite, that I can say 100%. I mean, I'm not into conspiracy theories much, but I can say this:
He's getting there, though.
you're literally operating full time trying to investigate this. Like, where's our water going? How is it flowing? What's the maintenance on these pumps? And your government can't tell you shit
Yeah.
because they don't know.
So how do they know?
Or there are lizard people and they're farming us. I'm going to go with our government is clueless just because I'm going to try to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
And that is weird to me because our water is such an important resource. You should be able to get maps and diagrams and graphs and SOPs.
If our government
processes,
if our government is controlling it and directing it, you should.
Well,
If our government leaves it alone, then I wouldn't expect anything. But our government is instilling massive control.
yeah.
Now, do I believe Twila City is a sold government? No. I believe Twila City is pretty good.
Salt Lake
And-
City is.
Well,
We'll get into that when we do
maybe
the
that
whiteboard.
is where the hole to the underground layer of the lizards is in major cities. They build that around that.
Well, Salt Lake City is like the first smart city that came out. Everything's smart up there already. Has been
Except for
some
what,
time.
the mayor and the people?
Exactly. Exactly. The mayors are actually partnered with.
Salt Lake City. We
do the
made our
benches
city
in the park
smarter.
where the homeless people live warm themselves in the winter?
Well, I don't know.
Because they vote Democrat.
But I think Salt Lake City could make an infomercial on that. Like, welcome to Salt Lake City. We've made our city smarter so you don't have to be.
Right. Well, that's the other thing. We had water department heads. They gave like a meeting and we went and there was somebody in the back who'd asked them, why haven't you guys, there's so much like to irrigation. They have all this leakage, the canals that are going out. So a lot of it is just leaking before it even reaches where it's supposed to irrigate. He's like, are you guys going to be fixing that? He's like, well, part of the problem is it's too expensive. We don't have the funding for it. And I was like, well, wait a minute. You guys are replacing everything with artificial intelligent piping. Isn't that more expensive? And it was like, ooh, deer in the headlights. Right. And well, I don't know. And I'm like, no, it's in our
Next question,
strategic
please.
plans.
Is there anyone in here with a
They
patriotic sticker that we could come down on hard?
Exactly.
Anybody, please. Anyone. You, sir, Tommy Hilfiger. That's got kind of a red, white, and blue thing under it, right? Yeah, yeah. Arrest that person. Adjourned.
They left early. They did. They shut it down early. And I was like, look, I know that you're doing it because it's in our strategic plans. It's been presented to legislation. Y'all are working on it. They just went to the next question and it was like, they were, well, we got to go. I have another thing. Really? Because it was scheduled till 1 and it's only 12:45.
Would you look at the time?
Would you look at it? And then the next
My wife planned on getting pregnant today and I want to be there this time.
at legislation, like a week and a half later, same group is there, and legislation is asking, Ken Ivory actually put a committee together, which was brilliant. And they were actually asking some hard questions for once. And they asked where all the funding is going because they're wanting more appropriations, these same heads, right? And they asked where the money is going. And one of the 3 things they said they were spending on was replacing leakage and canals out to irrigation. A week and a half prior, he gave someone out in that area. He's like, I've been going and lining these canals myself because you guys aren't doing it. He told him they didn't have the money for it. When legislation asked him what they're using the money for, he said that was one of the things that they were using it for. So it's lie after lie, contradiction
Nobody
after
knows
contradiction.
what's going on is what happens. You just give money to people and it just disappears into a black pit of confusion and illusion.
Well, right now, I think, we don't give money to people right now.
We don't give it, they
They
extract it.
get a loan a couple of years in advance and then come point guns at us and steal it from us.
Right.
But right now, it seems how much has gone.
It's almost like mining.
How much has gone into Ukraine right now?
40 billion plus.
I want you to everyone think about that.
Why aren't we fixing our homeless problem here before we do that?
$40 billion into a lost cause for what? Elon Musk is turning off Starlink. I think that's a death knell for Ukraine.
How do you know he's turning off Starlink?
Because the Ukrainian ambassador to wherever told him to fuck off, so he came out and said he's shutting it off. Today.
I did not know that.
Or yesterday. So he turns off Starlink. That's Ukraine's communications. Because, and the ambassador or whatever, director of, rape and kiddery or whatever they do in those government offices, Elon has been saying we need to find a path to peace. And he came out and told him to fuck off. So Elon Musk has been spending, according to him, about 20 million a month to keep Starlink up. And he said, I don't see a reason to keep paying that. That's been Ukraine's means of communications, including strategic and tactical.
Well, we'll have to see what happens. I don't
Now,
know.
maybe the Department of Defense will step in and say, we'll pay that. Maybe. I mean, it's not like it
Wouldn't be a bad strategy.
It's not like they're spending their own money. But why are we dumping that much into Ukraine? What is the advantage with dumping that into Ukraine? Someone explain that to me.
Okay.
The Ukrainian government gets rich.
Have you ever played Risk?
No, I think it turns back around and our government's getting rich off of it.
Well, that
Jared,
I
look.
wouldn't be surprised.
Let's say there's a blue army and a red army, and then you're yellow down here.
Uh-huh.
It's easier to feed blue army so that their armies attack the red armies or the red armies attack the blue armies rather than you send your armies there. So all we have to do is send money.
Why? What's the value in Ukraine or Russia?
You got
Is
to
it-
conquer the world.
is it-
That's the game.
Is it just so that we have a permanent enemy so we keep feeding the industrial war complex so that we constantly make their biggest lobbyists richer?
It helps those people make more contracts, yeah.
Okay.
And that's what it's really all about.
What it's really all about.
Control,
Remember,
and contracts and money.
we are just, I would like to say we've risen to the level of subjects, but we are livestock.
That's how the World Economic Forum sees us, and they're getting things into our local communities. So how does that make y'all feel?
Yes.
Think of yourself like free range livestock, though. It's not like we're in a box and they are caging us in yet.
Hold on. What about California coming out and they wanted to be able to tax people who moved away for 10 years?
Want and will, I guess, is like two totally different things. I mean, California wants to do a lot of crazy
Imagine
things.
what Austin would look like when all the California, I don't know what California's state IRS is called. California have to rent whole suburbs to house all their tax thieves to stay for 2 months a year.
Well, maybe they're just making the process so difficult that it's going to be unmanageable, and maybe that ain't a bad thing. Because, I mean, logistically speaking, of all the parts and pieces of the puzzle we were talking about today, what could possibly go wrong on one part of those puzzle pieces could possibly upend the entire process.
Hold on.
There's lots of room for error.
On taxes, it doesn't work that way. Because on taxes, if the government makes a mistake, no harm, no foul, right?
True.
What happens if you make a mistake?
I don't make mistakes.
But what happens if you did?
Probably wouldn't exist anymore, right?
Harm and foul.
You go to prison.
Prison or fine. And at the end of that is death.
Right.
Remember, at the end of every fine is death. Because if you refuse a fine, they send a armed force to you. If you refuse that non-violently, you end up in prison with those charges. And if you refuse that violently, well, then Waco.
So, the cement rape cell or fiery death.
Upcycle. That's right. Don't shoot him
I'll
in
make
the
a fine lasagna one day.
Don't shoot him in the rump or the backstrap, boys. I'm taking dinner home to mama. Remember, when you're hunting, you want to go for the lungs and or heart.
Just make it quick. That's all I ask.
Anyway, sorry. We keep ruining her show here.
I thought she did a pretty good job putting it all together because, like,
Dude, she does a fantastic job. I want to have
it is
her
a
back
scary utopian picture.
on. I want to
you
have the map with all the companies and politicians
We'll do it.
and red yarn just making these lines, and I want to see where it goes.
I'll show you some of my mind maps that I've made.
Probably makes a
before I leave.
pentagram.
Seriously,
Today.
you've made some?
Oh yeah,
Dude, it is on, folks.
yeah. We'll come back in if
Come
you guys
here.
want to see that. We'll get into it because I'd like people to know who are involved. Now, in their defense, there are some legislators here who really thought they were doing the right thing, and as
Oh, I'm sure.
Klaus would call them useful idiots, right? But there are some that are, I mean, directly in bed with this. They're not good people, and yeah, we can get into all that. I'd like people to know who they are and what they're doing.
I need to learn to imitate Klaus so I can do that on the show.
Intermountain
I
Hill.
see in the future a world of children eating their dead grandparents.
Upcycled. They're upcycled grandparents. Yeah.
Just see us like the World Economics Forum State Fair, and they've got a auctioneer collar and people in pens.
They just keep track of them through their cell phone.
Yeah, well, and they do that in China. You brought that up earlier. In China, you have to have the COVID app, which tracks where you are at all times, and you can be arrested if you do not have your phone with you or you do not have that app on your phone. They will arrest you.
Wait, where is this?
In China.
China.
Yeah. Well, that
Now,
didn't-
China doesn't invent any of this. I think China's the testing ground for all these policies.
Are we going for 3 hours? Is that what we're doing?
I don't know. I think we need to
Release her.
release you and stop abusing the listeners and me, because someone has to pull all this in, break it into sizable chunks that can allow us onto certain places. I don't think we've said anything that's editable that will get us tossed off YouTube as of yet, but I will find out. I mean, you got my other show thrown right off YouTube.
I did. Well, for COVID misinformation,
Oh,
we didn't-
whoa.
Sorry.
Whoa.
There you go.
edit that out. Edit that
No.
out. I'm sorry.
Did you say Harley Quinn wears what kind of shoes?
Blue pumps.
We say there are words we can use. The jab.
The jab. Well, I didn't say that V
My
word.
Sharona virus.
We're not allowed to use that one, eh? I thought it was just the jab.
You cannot say.
You can't
if
talk
you
about it.
say the C word, it draws attention
I didn't
from
know that.
and
Okay.
do you know what listens to us?
What?
Computers.
Well, yeah.
And computers are notorious for never going overboard and doing crazy shit.
Okay, cut that part out.
Like turning an investigator's car, Porsche, or I think it was a Mercedes, into a fucking bullet and killing him because he was looking into maybe the ties between the Defense Intelligence Agency and the CIA at certain times during the Afghan war. And where is all this heroin coming from? Shit. But right after he died, that dies down and fentanyl appears. How the hell? This world is magic. I'm telling you, it is all a quinkity.
Well, it doesn't even matter if I say it or not because they threw us off and we didn't even mention that once.
We did.
No, we didn't. When?
We did. You can go to Rumble and watch it. It is everything that gets tossed off of YouTube is still on Rumble.
I don't remember
Now,
mentioning that.
me and David.
Sometimes it just comes out in the most inopportune
me and
times.
David are sitting on thin ice because we just got canceled. What was it? 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Now me and
We're on like
Betsy-
straight 3, aren't we?
I'm trying to remember.
This
when-
would be strike 3. Now me and Betsy are on a much more loose because we had gone since like February before we got popped. But me and David, we got popped. What was it? Just like a month ago, maybe a month and a half. And what they do is they don't let us put something up for a month or for a week. And then the next time, I think it's 2 weeks. And then after that, they shut your show down. So, I mean, we could even get hit one more time because I'm not going to edit. I'm just going to throw this up.
You're going to have to tell me where you're going to show me that part later.
I think we should probably just put this one on Rumble and call YouTube a good one.
No, I'm just throwing it up. I'm doing it. Well, one, if we get tossed off YouTube, oh, well, just a badge. Maybe they'll send us a black play button.
In case you all wanted to know, this is their process for when they're done with the show.
Oh, are we still on a show?
We're still on the show.
Oh, shit. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Twilla Happy Hour. Anyways, we've gone 2 hours. Thank you very much. We are going to have Chelcie on again. Now, Chelcie, you can go to her Rumble and give her, check it out. Her Rumble is hopelou.rumble.com or whatever.
Hello, you.
Go to Rumble and go to Hope Lou. She has, if I look at it all, she has, oh God, what are we looking at? 20 videos here or so. I reckon around there. Some of them are, picture of her lovely face telling you about the heinousness that is going on. Some of them are, her investigative. She has actually gone out and done the investigations. You can see her going out to the canals. We didn't have a chance to dig into that. Many more questions. I have a loose thought with the Great Salt Lake and the industry that comes out of there. I think we need to dig into that.
Yeah, we kind of have the same idea, but before I talk about it publicly, I want to, I don't like to come out with stuff I don't have evidence
And that's where
for,
I think you and I think we'll need to take a drive out there and look at the paths where they're going, because I do know that there is very particular industries on the Great Salt Lake that are only provided there.
It's interesting though that you had already had that same thought, and we'd had them separately.
Oh, you're talking about the lithium?
Oh, what are you talking about?
The lithium that I heard about a year ago, like the titanium plant's dead, and it came around like, they're going to try to pull lithium out of the lake. They think they can get 1 part per 100 gajillion, salt water or whatever, whatever. And if they can make any lithium, good on them. I mean, why not? And whatever, we're making arsenic apparently.
Except that in order to do that over and through the Great Salt Lake, they're draining fresh water into the Great Salt Lake, taking our water supply away from us in order to do it. Is that for the
lithium? Because I do know that they pull fresh water into both the magnesium.
If that's what they're doing with it.
But the lithium, I don't know the process. I know
you evaporate it through the salt. You evaporate it and then you crush the salt. You
the same way everything else. They just try to pull the lithium hard metal out. Whereas at the salt, we require fresh water at the salt plants to make salt. If we have just brine water, it doesn't work as well. It doesn't make as big of crystals. I don't know. There's a science behind it. Again, more on about 6th grade education. Okay. 6th grade education. If I was in special ed, I'm giving myself credit right now. Remember, I have almost evolved to human. I will learn to paint on cave walls next week.
Nice.
I'm going off just what I know.
So Hunter Biden
can we show them your painting?
Yeah. Hunter Biden can help me finger paint. And, he'd just be doing coke off my bum. And with that.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks, guys. We will have Chelcie back on again. And I would like to say we're not going to drink that time, but we are.
And she
because it is the Twilla Happy Hour. And Chelcie's I gave you a new bottle of water. She's been drinking water, which is probably why she's just deer in the headlight us the whole time. But have a good weekend. Say goodbye, Dave.
Good night.